Hello, Mikael. Welcome to our channel, Cinemate, and thank you so much for your time.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, your movie, Stockholm Bloodbath, is coming to cinemas in Spain on May 16th this month. We're very excited, and it has a very distinct tone. It's blending history, it's blending dark humor and bold visual style. How would you describe the film yourself?
Well, I think you described it very well. Uh, but it's the Stockholm Bloodbath. It's a very famous thing that happened here in Sweden. I mean, it's very happy. It's very famous in Swedish history. Every Swede will know about this event. When the Danish king invaded Sweden and so on, a lot of people was executed in Stockholm 500 years ago. Outside Sweden, this event is not so famous, but for us, it's something special. So it's never been brought in film. So we thought it would be interesting to put this event on film and also make it in this specific style. Not make a history lesson per se, but make something that is also entertaining in different ways and have this dark humor, as you mentioned, and so on. But most of the characters are characters that actually existed in real history.
Yeah. But you did so many genres in your career. Why were you attracted at this time to a historical film?
Again, I worked a lot outside Sweden with American films and so on, and but I like to come back here and work, with Swedish subject matters, and I made a couple of films in Sweden in the last years, and I talked to my producer, and we discussed what could be a good subject, and Stockholm Bloodbath came up, and we said, yeah, let's try for that. I never made a historic film that historical. I made films that took place in the 50s, in the 1950s, but not in the 1500s. So it's a big jump. But I thought it was very exciting. You want to challenge yourself and do different things also. Never repeat yourself, but trying to explore different genres and so on. So it was an adventure, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. And the female vengeance, revenge is at the heart of the film. How did you aim to portray that powerfully and especially originally in the times that we're living within such a brutal historical context?
Yeah, we as I said, a lot of the characters in the film did exist in real life. Obviously, the Danish king and a lot of the Swedish noblesse and so on. But we needed a story, something that sort of brought us into these events, and we needed characters that did that. So, through discussions, we came up with this female-oriented revenge story that also makes sense in the context of the times. This family is wiped out by the Danish, rogue soldiers from the Danish army. It was a lot of those kinds of things happening around Sweden at the time when the Danes were marching through Sweden. So that made sense, and so we came up with the sisters and what happens to them, the tragic events on one of the girls' women's funeral and wedding, and then the brothers they are killed and so on. So it's a classic revenge story that drags us into the heart of what Stockholm Bloodbath was.
Yeah. And this is a very ambitious Nordic production. It's a very big film. What were the biggest creative and logistical challenges you faced during filming?
Where to shoot it was one starting point. We not much of Stockholm at that time exists anymore here, so we realized pretty quickly it was not feasible to shoot it here. So we shot it in Hungary and in Prague, where they have a big backlot, a medieval city that could work for Stockholm, and in Hungary, where I made quite a few films before and had a lot of friends and colleagues and so on. So and they also have a great infrastructure for filmmaking. We also decided to make it in English because there were some English actors that I want to work with. So it's a mix of English, UK actors and Scandinavian actors, Danish, Swedish, and English, Irish actors.
Was there a particular scene that you remember that proved especially to be difficult to film?
Well, it's a lot of. You can't always say that this big battle scenes are complicated, or difficult if you want, but they also so very well planned in advance. You have a stunt coordinator, you have all of these things, you have the horse masters, a lot of horses, there's a lot of that stuff. So they usually go pretty by the book because we plan it for a long time. So I think I find to find a good balance in the film, to mix those actors with different backgrounds and so on, but not really difficult. It was sometimes complicated, but it's all about planning and execution.
Yeah, I had the pleasure to chat with Sophie Cookson, and she told me you were so great in these difficult battle scenes. It was a lot going on, and you were so calm and so great. She remembers that.
Yeah, well, that's nice of her. Yeah, I'm pretty good at keeping my calm. But again, obviously, it's making a film can be stressful and all of that. But I made a couple of films in my life, so you also get more and more, hopefully secure and experience. Exactly. So I think, but you always, every day you wake up with that sort of feeling in your gut that it's a bit of nervousness always. Otherwise, it would be boring. But you can rely on experiences as well.
Yeah, but it is interesting that it never goes away. You're always a little bit on the tip of your toes.
Yes, absolutely. I think you have to. It's very important.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, the characters of Freya and Anne are fictional heroines, but placed in a real historical event. How did you work with Sophie Cookson and Alba August to ensure their performances felt grounded and compelling?
Just so Alba is Swedish or Danish Swedish, so I know Alba from before. She played the lead in a previous film that I made a few years before, so I know Alba very well. We were looking for the other sister, and we had casting out of London, and Sophie's name came up, and I've seen her before, and we discussed, and I really liked her take and her persona for this part. And then, as you do, I brought them together. They were hanging out together, and we were rehearsing their reading. We're talking about, there's the sisterhood and all of that. Alba's character is also mute in the film. She never speaks, so they obviously have a different way of communicating than speaking. So that was interesting, and something Alba also really liked. She liked the idea of being mute and just have to express herself through herself or her movements or her eyes and face and so on. So that was that was that really. They really, I could see from the start that they enjoyed each other's company and they had a good time together.
Yeah, they had chemistry. Really nice together. Claes does also an amazing performance in the film. What was it like working with him, and how did he shape the tone and intensity of the whole picture?
Well, quite a lot, obviously, is Claes Bang. So but even before I started to work on the script, Erland Loe is the writer of the script. He's a Norwegian writer of scripts and novels, and quite famous here in Scandinavia. And I worked with him before as well. But even before we started to write the script, we talked about Claes as a potential King Christian, and when the script was ready, I sent it to Claes Bang, and he came back after a day or two very, very quickly and said, "Oh, this is something I would really love to do." I think he saw a lot of potential, in this character, King Christian, and he made a really fun and powerful and scary performance, obviously. But it is the kind of character that an actor like Claes really can embrace. I think a lot of depths, a lot of emotion, a lot of power, a lot of humor, not at least, and weakness, and so on. I mean, all the men in this film are kind of, pretty ridiculous, flawed characters, and so even King Christian, and the women are stronger and more together, as it is in the world. So I think he really enjoyed the part, and also, again, we had a really good situation on set with this English combination of Scandinavian and UK actors, because culturally we have the same sort of roots, and we have the same kind of humor and all of those things. So it worked out really well.
It did. And also, who is great in the film is Emily Beecham, and you worked again with her in Slingshot, your next project after Stockholm Bloodbath.
Yeah, I worked 3 times. She was also, I made a film on Netflix for Netflix called Outside the Wire with Anthony Mackie a few years ago, and that was the first time I worked with Emily, and I really get along with her. I think she's a wonderful actress. So as it was, when we decided to make this film in the English language, I sent it to her for Christina, the Swedish head of state, as she plays, and I think she's doing a wonderful performance as her.
She's wonderful. How she's handling her loss, and she has the strength to go forward because she's the head of the state. She's brilliant, really brilliant.
Yeah, and that's another character from real life, and exactly that happened. She had quite a few kids in real life. She was pregnant. Her husband died on the battlefield, and she had to take over from him. So during the time of the invasion. So yeah, that's very much accurate to what happened.
Yeah, I'm in awe of this character. Like she's the best.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Would you say the story draws parallels to today's times in some way? What elements of this, as you say, 16th century conflict do you think still might resonate with our times?
I mean, we haven't had war in Scandinavia for many hundreds of years, but you don't have to look very far to see regional conflicts in Europe right now, these days. So, and obviously another country trying to take over a country, that's happening around the corner. It's happening right now. So those kinds of conflicts and geopolitical issues and conflicts and wars are 500 years later still happening, just very close by. So of course there is a lot of similarities to our times when it comes to politics and power and quest for power and so on and so on. Definitely.
Do you believe historical films should prioritize factual accuracy, or the emotional and thematic relevance is more important?
I think both. It depends a little bit what you try to portray, but I think to me it was important to me to have to be accurate historically in this case, and I think we are much more that than people may think. And then it's combined with adventure and action to a degree that obviously is it's a filmmaker's tool, but I think maybe it can help an audience, also a younger audience that are used to a certain kind of flow and energy and tempo to get into a historic event and maybe even learn something about what happened. So, all the things you mentioned are important, obviously. Otherwise, there's great books you can read. There is historic documentaries that are great, and that's a genre by itself, and you can read that. Film and movies are a different tool with different possibilities.
I agree. I also wanted to talk to you about your career because it's wild. You mentioned it's like, yeah, I worked in a couple of films. No, but it's wild. Your film On Scan, which is Evil in English, was nominated for an Academy Award in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back now, all these years went by, what do you remember most vividly about that experience, professionally and personally?
With Evil, you mean? Yeah, if it was I was not that experienced when I made Evil, but I made a couple of films before. I worked quite a lot on television and started out as a writer for Swedish television, writing a lot of stuff, episodes for TV shows and so. Evil was based on a very famous book that every kid in Sweden have read, and a lot of people have tried to make it into films before, but me and a friend wrote the script that the producers really liked, and we shot it all quite quickly in a way, and I still remember getting that call that the film had been nominated for a Academy Award. That was kind of mind-blowing at the time because nobody had that idea in their head that would happen. It was just something extraordinary and something very, very fun and exciting, of course. So a lot of things happened with that, and a lot of things changed in my career and life, and I get a possibility to work abroad and in the American system as well. So it was really a door opener in that way. So very much fond memories from Evil. Absolutely.
Oh, great. Did you go to the Oscars?
Yeah, of course I had to. It's not every day you get an Oscar nomination. Yeah. I went with the producers and so on. It was great fun. At that year, a Canadian director, Canadian film won Best Foreign Film. A director that he was nominated several times before, so he was sort of first in line, I think. But the film was really, really liked in the Hollywood community, Evil, and still is, but liked to a level that I had hard time sort of foresee and understand at the time. The Americans really embraced this movie, which I think it's very much in the American psyche. I think it's a revenge story. It's a kind of story that I think the American psyche sort of embrace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after that, as you mentioned, a lot of doors opened and you worked a lot in Hollywood and across Europe. How do you compare the storytelling environments in these different industries?
I think first, this was quite a few years ago. It's a very different arena now than it was when I started out for a lot of reasons. There was not many Swedes or Scandinavian working in the American system there. It was just a few, and we didn't have the whole TV situation that we have now with all the streamers so the globalization of the industry have happened during this time, and now it's much more cross productions, and the people can read subtitles and accept subtitles. So Netflix are making Swedish series and Spanish series and so on and so on. So it's and everybody working together in a much different way. So a very different situation. When I started out, it was still, you had to understand the system over there, which is when you're actually shooting your scenes, it's very much the same, but the whole system with studios and much more producers involved, much more money involved, which makes people obviously more stressed out and aware. So there is a lot of difference on a corporate level, but I find it less different today than it was when I started out working in the international environment, shooting films in Hungary with people from all over the place, working together. It's a much more internationalized community than it was back then.
So blended now, everything, not only film industry, but all industries.
Yeah, absolutely.
You worked also with major stars throughout your career, like Anthony Hopkins in The Ride, John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson in 1408.
Yeah.
Now your next film, Slingshot, Lawrence Fishburne and Casey Affleck. Wow, crazy names. What have you learned from working with such A-listers, actors, and how does it influence your approach as a director?
I mean, if you do your casting right, like John Huston, the famous American director John Huston said once, as soon as I have to direct an actor, I know I did my casting wrong, which is sort of pushing it. But obviously it helps. It helps a lot to get very good actors. They will contribute a lot to not only the characters, to the whole film. So yeah, I've been lucky working with some really good actors that you mentioned, but also a lot of other not so famous ones that are really great. You have to choose the right actor for the right character. Even famous actor can be miscast, in certain parts. But I found all these people that you mentioned that are famous. They are very hardworking and very down to earth and very sort of professional people, and everybody want to work. Everybody want to do good work, and making a movie is such a collective process. And Anthony Hopkins, he's a guy who really wants to be, involved. He's very unpretentious. He's very socially fun, and he likes to hang out with the crew. I mean, they bring a lot, not only to the parts, but to the whole experience for everyone. And so I've been very lucky with actors, and I can truthfully say that I never had sort of a major issue or conflict with a actor, famous or not famous. I think I'm good at getting along and understand actors and what their different needs are. So, and as you say, Casey and Lawrence Fishburne in Slingshot. That was it's a very different film from Bloodbath. It's very contained. It's also Tumer Capone, the Israeli actor. The three of them are on a spaceship, so it's a very, very contained drama. in contrast to Stockholm Bloodbath, which is not very contained. So and we see Emily Beecham in some scenes, flashbacks from Earth. So again, you try to not you try new things and you try new adventures every time you make a film.
That was exactly what was I going to ask the next. Because you did like a very big production film and then a very contained drama. And do you have like a personal preference between big budget or films or smaller films?
No, I mean, no, I never. Obviously, it's very, very different when it comes to budgets, because I think Slingshot and Stockholm Bloodbath actually have exactly the same budget, more or less. I think maybe Stockholm Bloodbath is slightly cheaper, lower budget than Slingshot, which says a lot, because Bloodbath is completely financed out of Scandinavia, out of Sweden, and Slingshot is American co-production with Hungary. So and that says a lot about salaries and how much the actors get and so on and so on. So I think. And I try to stay away from big budgets, because that's kind of films that I'm not really feel I'm right for, or that I'm not sort of interested in. Other people can make that much better. And also, if you have budgets for 100 or 150 or 200 million dollars, a lot of people are going to be really, really nervous how to get those money back. So the less money you have, you obviously you want to have the money that you need to make the film in the right way. You don't want to scramble. But sort of all the films that you mentioned are sort of mid-range or in America, mid-range budget and so on. And the Slingshot even on the lower scale of that in when it comes to US movies. So that's fine, as long as you have what you need to make it right.
And looking at the wide range of genres you've worked in, like historical drama, horror, thriller, action, how do you choose your next project? What draws you in creatively?
I think you change as a person through life, and you get you have your interest can change. I think you are who you are when it comes. You have you have certain aspects of a story that you like, or certain characters, or certain situations, and so on. But or psychology that you are interested in. But I think right now I'm quite into science fiction, not science fiction Star Wars like, but more the close science fiction around the corner, future around the corner, what's going to happen 5, 10, 15 years from now, and AI and all of those things. So I have a few projects that deals with that. I'm quite interested in that how we shape the world in the near future.
So looking a little bit ahead, do you have already a new project you are working in, as you mentioned?
Nothing officially, but I have. I just shot a Scandinavian a TV show for Sky Showtime here in Swedish, which has been really fun. About a female cop with certain special powers, and it's been a lot of fun. And that just wrapped, so now I'm trying to figure out what to do next. But again, I have a couple of projects that I'm developing, which in that kind of world that I just talked about.
Yeah. So best of luck, because we are going to be waiting for your next projects.
Yeah. I will try to be fast. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to be able to chat with you and have these few minutes to discuss the film. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we we managed to talk about a lot. 20 years of film.
Yeah, I just couldn't talk to you about your new film because you have such a wild career. I wanted to ask you everything.
Well, no, thank you very much, and good luck to you with everything else.
Thank you so much.
For people paying like the film. Bye bye.
Bye bye.